Hi, everyone. Welcome to We Belong Education podcast. Today, Helen and I are here together recording a podcast on a Friday because that's what we do on a weekend, isn't it, Helen?
Yep. Some people go out and be social and go to the pub after work. We come and record a podcast.
Yeah, because there's such an interesting lives we have, isn't it?
Yep.
Interesting, sad, you name it, whatever word you want to give. Helen, I'm really excited about this topic because, as you said, on the phone, you've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it. And there are a couple of stories I want to share, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah. The question that I called you a few days ago, an idea rather than a question, was, hey, Helen, let's record a podcast on what's an educator? Yeah. Who is an educator? And because I wrote a few days ago in a workshop, I wrote a word educator on the whiteboard, and the following day I looked at it and I thought, does that mean the same thing to everyone, or it has different meanings? Of course, it has different meaning, but I really was interested how people say it. So when I called you, what you said back to me was, when did you become an educator, instead of what makes an educator? And I think that was that's the topic I want to talk about. Not when did you become one, but what makes one, but when did you become one? So I thought, given that you said it, how about I just put the question back to you?
Oh, such a wise question. It's so profound. But I can tell you, I may have asked that question. I don't actually know the answer. Wow. I've been thinking about it a lot since we talked about it in relation to myself. And I don't know. Like, am I an educator? 100% yes. But when did it actually happen? I don't know. And I think I've spoken about this before. I mean, we've spoken a few times now on the podcast about, my journey, how I started in this job. And, people are often shocked when I do say that in New South Wales, you can be an USH educator for people with accents, an OSH educator without a qualification, which that's a whole nother debate. We can talk about that another time. But so I started in this job, just rocked up, started and for all intents and purposes and for my position description, I was an educator. That's a bit scary. And I think we've spoken about, we've had a conversation before. So I jump back. When I did my Cert 3 or 4, whichever one it was the very beginning one, I did certificates ago. I think I thought, when I get the piece of paper, I might, feel more official, or to parents, I might seem more credible. Yep. And really didn't feel any the same. And we spoke about this, a year or two ago when I got my teaching degree. I really thought that, I think I rang you because I'd finally submitted that horrible GTPA assignment. And I said to you, don't feel any different. I really expected that I'd press submit and then the hallelujah choir would start singing, angels would appear, and I would suddenly feel different because now I am officially a teacher. Didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
So that's where my thoughts have started. In that and I suppose extra questions does a qualification make you an educator?
And that's what I wrote down too. I thought when you were thinking about it, you went straight to academic qualification, presence or absence of it. So absence of it made you feel, is that it? And then when you did get the certificate and then recently the teaching degree, that still didn't make you feel, I'm a teacher now. So that I like to think in the society we live in, when someone says, what made you this, or when did you become this? People often suggest the date or talk about when did they academically got qualified for that, and rightly so, because that's what people are looking at. Hey, when did you finish your engineering, or when did you finish your MBA or teaching degree? So, but then the question goes a bit deeper. When did you feel that, today I'm an educator? like from now on. And
Well, I
I
think
think that's what you're saying. It's hard.
before we go there, seems you've had a few days now to ponder this question.
Yeah.
Do you have any insights for yourself? When do
Yes.
you feel like
Uh,
you became an educator?
More than moving away from being known as an educator, so or a teacher for that matter. So
Mm,
because of how I see that word now, or
mm,
how it makes sense to me. So going back a step, uh, teaching, I was doing a teaching degree when I was
mm,
doing my master's. I knew that when I finish this, I will become a teacher, or I would become, let's say, a qualified teacher,
mm,
or I will get the license to teach. How about that? Yeah.
mm-hmm.
But as I was studying to be a teacher, when I applied for this OSH job, because I have an accent, because OSH job, it says OSHC. Yeah. So when I applied for the job, I thought it meant back in 2007, overseas student health cover. So I thought I'm applying for the over because I was an immigrant. I mean, I'm always going to be an immigrant, but I just come from India and I had the OSH card with me because that was my Medicare equivalent to Medicare card. So for me, overseas student S health HC cover. So I thought I was applying for that job. And when they called me at a school, I went there thinking, why are we meeting at a school? But I thought maybe there might be some immigrant children that they want to work on. And they've asked me, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a good job for me. So I went there, and she asked me to cut apples, and I started cutting apples, and I looked on my left. There was a wall which says, "Welcome to our OSH, outside school eye care." I kept cutting apples, and I got the job. So from that day, I became an educator. I'm like, oh, okay. So society-wise, I became an educator that day. Okay.
Mm.
So, and I could say to my friends too, hey, I'm an educator now. Yeah. But they didn't relate to me as an educator. Like, you're the same guy. You're the same guy yesterday. You're the same guy today. But I could say professional identity,
Mm,
I became an educator that day. Yeah.
mm,
Same with teaching. November 2008, that's when I got the degree teaching.
mm,
So I can say officially I became an educator, but I like to think, when did I become an educator? I guess I've been thinking about it since I've called you. And it is because of my dog who recently passed away. Her name was Shanti. Shanti means peace. So when I was an educator working with children, I was a bit more disciplinary. I was a bit strict, I can say, compared to who I am now, or how I interact with children now. And and if they did not follow the rules, I felt they were disrespecting me,
mhm.
or what about their future? And all they
Yeah.
have to do is listen to me, and everything will be fine. That
Mhm.
kind of thing. And we talked about how last time, unheard educator. I think I was one
Mm,
of those. Like, listen to me because I have something really important to say to you. Because I
mm,
am the teacher and you
mhm.
are the student. Yeah. So
And children should be seen and not heard.
not heard. So they should be listening to the elder in the room because I am the teacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I teach, you listen, kind of thing. But
Mm,
when I had she was a pup then, and she would never listen to me. And Shanti will never listen. She had a border collie in her. So she was amazing. She was very smart. So she would listen to me when she wanted to. She would not listen to me when she didn't want to. So she would not come to me if she didn't know, if she knew that I had nothing to offer. So I'll say, come here, Shanti. She's like, why? Why would I come to you? You've got nothing in your hands. I don't see a leash. I don't need to come to you. So that was a way of smartness. And somehow I never used to get frustrated at her. I never got angry. I was like, oh, let her win. Yeah, you're smart. I will let you win. So I started suspending expectation and power that I had. Like, I'm the owner, she's the dog. She should listen to
mhm,
the owner, that kind of thing. And then I went to work and I thought, people leave their shantis with me. So people leave their children with me. And right before this realization, when I used to complain, and I would say the word complain on purpose. I wasn't reporting, I was complaining and whinging to the parents about their children's behavior. Yeah. And then parents will come and say, "You should not do that. Helen, don't do that again. Let's go and have chicken nuggets." Yeah. And I used to get frustrated because I'm like, no, punish them because they disrespected me today. But then when I had Shanti, she would never get into trouble. So I thought, is that why parents don't put the kids in trouble because I'm complaining? So from that day onwards, I started suspending that expectation of the power that I had or never had, I guess, with children. And so my dog taught me how to be an educator, someone who is willing to be educated, as in someone who is okay to let other desires exist in the room, not just my desire, you do
Mm,
this, but also someone who says, you don't want to do it. There's
mm,
something in it for you. And I can create a space where you and I can both exist.
mm,
And I think this realization happened. I remember really well when I became that individual. But I'm not saying that's how people call being an educator.
mm. I just want to touch on something. I just wrote it down because I was worried I was going to forget. But just on something you just said, you said an
Is
educator
someone.
is willing to be educated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that falls into, I suppose, some reflection that I've been having. And I've shared openly on other podcasts. And I remember that Helen that started that
Mm.
the beginner educator. She didn't know much then, but I remember her and I look back now and, I know that, yes, I very much had that, behavioralist way of
Uh-huh.
working and my expectations on how children should be.
Mm.
And I think maybe I became an educator when I got really good at critical reflection.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good point.
Because the more I could look at, why am I reacting this way? Or why is this even bothering me? Or even today I did this, I did A and I got B response from the child. It taught me how to be with the children.
Mm.
It taught me how to taught me cause and effect. It taught me a lot. And even I think and this is why I think being an educator is a journey. I don't think it's ever a destination, is because I can think last week I'm in a new job and I'm going out to new services. I'm meeting a whole lot of new children. And I did go out to what was deemed a more tricky service with quite challenging children.
Mm-hmm.
And those groups are my favorites.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for that day when when I can't get through. But anyway, I met this one child and I knew I'd already known some of the challenges. And even then I started interacting with this child and he happened to not have shoes on.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to him, "Can you put your shoes on?"
Mm.
Ignored me. And then a few times I asked him and then I thought, hang on a second, Helen, stop. Why are we pushing this with this kid? Um, and we know there's safety and we know all that. But in that moment, he wasn't going to listen.
Yeah.
He was already dysregulated. The shoes were the last of the things. So I think I knew that I had to stop and I had to go, okay, if I'm going to pick my battles, where am I going to go with this kid? And actually first I need to create a connection before I go to direction. So, but that in itself, I was thinking every child you meet teaches you something different, because it's not a neat tidy little box of interaction A gets interaction B, because we know that interaction A with other children will get reaction Z. So you're always learning something. And I think I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and children still teach me things quite regularly. Like last week, I looked at how I interacted with that child and how me as the educator, like what battles do I need to pick? What do I need to do? What is the priority right now for this child and the care we're facilitating? So I do think that is actually a journey, not a destination.
Yeah, I agree with the journey and destination bit. And I guess you and I agree with one character of an educator is someone who is willing to be educated. In your case, for example, you were open to telling him what to do, but you're open also to listen to what's happening and say, what do I need to do?
Mm.
So it's not put your shoes on, XYZ, but also,
Mm.
Helen, put your listening hat on, because he's also telling you something. And we've talked about it in children voices
Mm.
that, so when I write the word educator on a
Mm.
whiteboard, if that characteristic doesn't exist in that word, as in if that doesn't mean that, as in willing to
Mm.
be educated, then I'm not an educator.
Mm.
So that's the difference between traditionally looking at an educator and distinctively looking at the word educator.
Mm.
So we have to define it.
Mm.
Otherwise, everybody's an educator.
Well, interestingly enough, I wanted to share before we go any further that when we discussed this, I said to you, I'm going to go, and anyone that does follow my Instagram will have seen it. I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to post a question on Instagram
Mm,
and write, when did you become an educator? I think there's a couple other prompts on there, but
mm,
I posted that. And I can tell you, we got zero answers.
mm,
What I did get was, this is really interesting. I can't wait to listen to
mm,
this.
mm,
I got a few of those. I did just get an interesting question, but
mm.
no actual answers. Because, and this to me tells me, because I can see who interacted with the post and
Yeah.
who liked it and things. Lots of reaction, but no actual answers. So that
Mm.
says to me that there's probably some other people that have been pondering this question as well since we presented
Yeah.
it on Instagram.
But I guess like how you define it is how you're going to answer that. So if you think
Mm.
qualification makes you an educator, and that's a qualifier, academic qualification is a qualifier for an educator, then everybody has a date.
Mm.
Some in New South Wales don't have a date because I understand that they haven't yet gone through the academic one. But in this podcast, we're looking at beyond academia. There are some qualifiers, and
Mm.
one of them is, I'm putting it in a way that when you are willing to be educated, that is when more than one desires can exist. So your desire was to put the shoes on, child's desire was no, and you
Mm.
go, hang on, the child is also sharing the space with me. What is the child telling me? And I guess that is, if that is a if that is a qualification, imagine that, if that is it, then many of us are not yet educators. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to ask people. Like, firstly, the question one is, what makes an educator? Question number two is, if that is an educator, when did you become one? So,
Well,
hmm,
I just want to add a little bit into this conversation because while we were being funny, haha, I think it does. I want you to talk about it because I think it does show that often what was your intention. So,
hmm.
can you just share with us why? Yeah. So you shared, obviously, you were confused and you thought it was the healthcare. So, but so that is why you first got into it. You didn't get into it because you actively woke up one morning and you said,
Hmm.
I light bulb moment. I am going to be an educator."
Hmm.
You woke up one morning, you said, "I'm going to apply
The
for
offshore,
healthcare."
yeah. And that too, also because the internet was limited on my laptop. Used to have Dell Inspiron back in 2007 with an Ethernet cable, and I was sharing it with lots of people, that house. So I had the internet on Seek for a few minutes. So I just uploaded my resume. And because of job crisis, I think I got invited to attend. But
But then one step further though,
hmm,
didn't you why did you first go into actually studying the teaching
yeah,
degree?
that is definitely was done on purpose. So I did my bachelor's in environmental sciences in India. So I had admission for masters of environmental management. So I was going to come over here for that. And then
Mm.
when I applied for the visa for June intake, I got the July intake, sorry, and I got the visa for the February intake. So I had like a 9 months in India, and I didn't know what to do. So
Mm.
I started. I went to this place which was teaching English to people, and we all
Mm.
had to give English examination test. So I had given that test, therefore I was getting the visa. Anyways,
Mm.
so I started teaching English, and I started realizing, oh damn, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Because people started attending my sessions, and then the sessions were bigger. And then I used to do 7 sessions. So 8 hours I used to work with 1 hour break. So I used to do 7 sessions, and did that for 7 months out of those 9 months. Anyway, so I thought, I called the university and said, is it okay if I change my course into teaching? And they said, yeah. So I changed my course from environmental management to teaching. So I knew that I want to work with adults and teach. But there was the difference between imposing my desires and listening to my audience was when I think I started becoming an educator. And I'm using the word becoming because, as you said, it's a lifelong process. So now when I speak, I don't speak to just create an influence, but also be influenced by my audience and by the children. So if you don't listen, then how would you speak? And what are you speaking to then? If you don't know what the question is, how can you answer that? So I guess for me, it started off with my dog, who showed me that, hey, I am more powerful in this room than you are. And then I started realizing the power children have, not the power that we allow them. They have dignity, they are children, they have power. And do I acknowledge and create space for that power to be embraced in my care or in my classroom? And that
So that
happened.
was your becoming belonging moment.
The reason why I don't use some of those words is because I'm not an expert in it. So but I do believe that when I write a word educator, I always look at it as someone being educated. But many times when I write the word educator, people say I need to educate. That means I'm the carrier of the knowledge and I need to give this knowledge to other people. Yeah. Let it be students, children, or audience. And I'm flipping it. And I think there is a spiritual influence of that. But before I go into that, how does that sound to you? Have I answered your question about how did I get into teaching to begin with? That was a conscious choice. But I didn't know what teacher meant. I just thought, speak to them. But now, for me, teaching or educating is, yeah, being open to new learning.
I often wonder when people listen to our podcast if they get to a point thinking, man, I'm now more confused than I was at the start.
We never claimed that this is going to be useful. We said listen at your own risk.
No, because I think often we start at these surface level questions, and we do this a lot, and we do this sometimes just when we're sitting in a room together. We start on these surface level questions, and then we unpack and unpack and unpack, and then we still don't have the answer because we're consistently unpacking. But I think what I've been thinking a lot about this one is like, just I don't know if there is a one defined answer for when did you become an educator or what makes you an educator. I mean, yes, we know, I'm sure I could Google right now, I could look up the ASEQA definition of educator and that will provide me some nice, neat explanation. I could look at what a school environment says an educator teacher is. I could look at what an early years service says an educator is, or what an OSH says an educator is.
Yeah.
And that would all give me, a parameter to go, oh, yep, okay, I know what that is. But I don't know why for me, I feel like it's, well, because I talk about a lot about feelings. Is it a feeling? I had to feel a certain way to and that's my I'm an educator moment, but I can't actually remember the defined moment when I felt like I was an educator.
So I think there are two responses to that. Even though definitions have been provided to us, why are we not able to say that's when I became an educator? Because we don't necessarily relate to those definitions. We don't look at those definitions and go, yeah, wow, that's me to the T. Like maybe that's why it is hard for us to pinpoint a time. We're not talking about the academic day or the day where you got the certificate. We're talking about when did you think you became an educator. For that, you have to really define what for you educator means. Yeah. And we are discussing that to be willing to be educated. And there's the other reason, I guess, is because what is our relationship to our own teachers? Because that's what we do in our top podcast. We go straight into the bottom, like what is causing all of this? Earlier in the podcast, I said that this is my new definition or my new way of looking at it. So the previous way of looking at it is that I don't think that I had a great teacher when educator was I was growing up. To become a teacher, it was more like a reaction. That is, I will become a teacher unlike my other teachers that I had. So it's a reaction.
And we know because we've discussed this before. A similar, I was one of those kids. Look, I look back now, I was probably the naughty kid. I was one of those kids. I had learning difficulties. I always felt silenced. And so I think that has been a big driver for me to always make sure that my children that I interact with feel nurtured, safe and heard. Because I remember so clearly now, I'm a woman in her 40s and I'm still thinking about those primary school days and high school days where I felt absolutely terrible.
So for me
just interesting, because I just did Google because I wanted to see what it says. So Google's AI just spat out a quick definition for me that according to a seeker, an educator is an individual who works with children in education and care services, provides supervision, tick, fosters learning through play-based approaches, tick, and nurtures well-being, tick. It then says they hold qualifications, blah, blah, blah. I actually find it interesting that it listed the qualifications second. When we started with the qualifications.
We started with the qualification, whereas there is attitude and then characteristics defined first, and then the qualification.
Maybe we need a We Belong educator checklist to help us all determine are we an educator?
Are we an educator? Well, I think that's what we need to end the podcast with. But when we look at my experience of teaching, so when I say that this is a new way of looking at it, it is a conscious choice to look at it that way. Because when I looked at teacher, so when you say teacher or when you say apple comes in your mind, okay, like green, red apple for privileged people, MacBook Pro. But when you say apple things come in your mind. So when you say teacher, your teachers come in your mind, right? So for me, I didn't have an inspiring teacher. I like to think that if I see any of my teachers on the street, I will walk away. I will just go somewhere else because I just don't think that it was just a job for them. Yeah. And they used to hit us, they used to complain, and they did really bad things, corrupted teachers too, like literally asking for money so that they can pass me in the exam, that kind of thing. So for me to go back to my dad and say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to be an environmental management guy. I'm going to become a teacher. So my dad also had the same experience with the teaching what I had because he had to deal with my teachers. Yeah. So he's like, why did you become one of them? And I said, no, I'm going to become not one of them. But what was I going to become? I didn't know, but not one of them. So I knew what not a teacher is or should be, but I didn't know what should be, what should define as a teacher. Like I didn't know what the character is. And I don't think that I do know now. I just think I just know one of them as someone who is willing to listen to the audience. Because as a student, as a child, I didn't feel that way. So although my willingness to become a teacher was out of a reaction of what I don't want to be, but I didn't know what will this all entail. And I'm in the process of, and I think that is why it is such an important question. And we've talked about the question identity in our first podcast, that anything that you say you are, how many hours or years or days have we spent on, are we that, or are we qualified to say that we are that? So I'm not a teacher if the definition is just that. Because I'm not an educator if the definition is that. I'm an educator because I'm willing to be educated, or I try to be educated. Otherwise, I really don't want to be that because I've had not great experiences with teachers. So I want to walk away from that word. It's like, you're a teacher. Like, don't say that to me. Don't call me that. That's because as a kid, we would not want to be teachers because we didn't have good ones around us. So that's one character. And early on, you said something which kind of took me to a spiritual side of it. When I say spiritual, I don't hold I'm not the, I don't think that I know everything there is to know about spirituality either, because everyone has a different meaning to it, just like people have different meaning of the word educator itself. So for me, when I was growing up, there was a saying, and I think that saying has stayed with me, and that's why it's kind of influencing me still today. It said, you know how we say teaching moment?
Mm,
Oh, there's a teaching moment. So who
mm,
decides there is a teaching moment? The teacher. Ah, teaching moment. Here you go. Yeah. There was a flip side to it. Or as I was growing up, I heard the other side to it, I guess. And in that, it said, when a student is ready, the teacher appears. So when a learner is ready, the teacher appears. So what that means is, the day when you're ready to learn, your dog can teach you. The day when you're ready to learn, the trees can teach you, river can teach you, other humans can teach you. But when you're not ready to learn, nobody can teach you, even if it's a teaching moment. So teachers say, aha, a teaching moment. So, Helen, what did you do? What did you learn? And I'm like, bro, I'm just going to say what you want to hear and I'm going to be out of here. Okay. Because I'm not willing to learn. For learning to occur, it's not the teacher which is the only important. For learning to occur, you want the learner to be ready for it. And when the learner is ready for it, you're not the only teacher. There are so many other teachers in the world. So for me, when I am with my students or audience, I'm like, they didn't choose me. The boss chose me. And I just showed up and we're like, hi, I'm a teacher. You're a student. And the kids are like, but we don't want to learn from you. We're not feeling connected with you. So you're just an educator because someone hired you, but we don't choose you. And since I'm not ready, not going to learn from you. I'd rather learn from an earthworm, a spider, a butterfly, but I'm not going to learn from Saurabh. So when a
Have
learner
we
is
just
ready,
have we just minimized the word educator teacher though? Because we
minimalize, yeah, go on.
sometimes we turn up into a room
Mm.
or there's a day and the children just don't want to listen to us. Doesn't mean we're not an educator, just means they're not listening that day.
No, that's good. That's great. So let's go back to that definition. I walk into a room, children are not willing to learn, but they are learning. They're not willing to learn what I have to teach them. They're not ready to listen, but there's a difference between listening and learning. And that's a great point here. They're not listening to me about the Pythagoras theorem that I had created a lesson plan for. I understand
Yeah,
that.
but they might have learned this is really boring, so they did learn something.
Yeah, exactly. And also, they learned that their teacher, Saurabh,
Oh, no.
is willing to listen to them and say, you know what, let's not do Pythagoras theorem. And they learn that he's a soft teacher. We can take advantage of him anytime. So this guy, isn't it quite funny? Because you just mentioned something when they're not ready to listen. Isn't it so ingrained with us that we believe that they will learn from me when they listen to me? And it goes back to the previous podcast. Listen to me. Everyone, eyes on me. I'm going to teach you because I'm a teacher. And I'm thinking, bro, they are learning way more than their curriculum. They are learning also that who you are for them. So I walk into a classroom, nobody's listening to me. And I look at them and go, and that has happened many times, especially if it's raining outside, there's no hope. So I walk in, I'm like, all right, what are they telling me today? My audience is telling me it's raining. There's a lot going on. And Pythagoras is not going to win. So I am learning, they are learning, but we are not necessarily listening to follow, but
Mm,
listening to understand.
mm.
Yeah. So I think teaching is an amazing job. I am a teacher. I'm still a registered teacher, so I don't walk away from that. But I guess I just need to, I wanted to say, I became a teacher academically in November 2008. I
Mhm,
became an educator because of when I started understanding that there are other people than me.
mhm,
And I'm learning to be a teacher because I'd like to think that the learner is learning from me, but also not just the curriculum, but also how I walk, how I talk, how I manage my own emotions, and is learning from the environment. So I'm a teacher but I'm a facilitator of learning,
Oh, he's a facilitator
of a learning.
of
So,
learning.
maybe that's an X characteristic. I'm willing to learn, and I facilitate learning. So that's, and I'm learning how to do that. I'm still becoming. Oh, don't say becoming, belonging now to me.
It's my favorite. But it fits.
It fits.
It
Uh,
does fit.
um, and how I want to conclude this, um, as you said earlier, that we don't have an answer,
Mm,
but we don't want to have an answer. You know the word define. Define is has a boundary, yes? That's how we
mm,
say it has a definition because it has a boundary. It can't go beyond that. It has to stay within it. So when you say, hey, this house is well defined, or there's a well defined map of something, so there's a boundary. So
mm,
definition makes things go inside a box. This is how it
mm,
is categorized, defined as. But now we know the word teaching and learning is can't be defined. It's cultural, it's spiritual, it's philosophical, it's psychological, it's sociological. So there's so many ways to look at the word learning. So isn't it great that we can't define it, and therefore you and I, while driving our car, keep thinking. But if as soon as we define it, we can memorize it, and we say, "Yep, I'm a teacher now because I do all of those four things." And
mm,
yet your students are like, "You're not a teacher. I don't like you as a teacher because you're doing those four things though." But we are not aware of the classroom. We are not aware that learning is beyond curriculum. Yeah. So I
mm.
think it's great that we can keep our audience confused and guessing, because not knowing is a great possibility. If you don't
Well,
know,
I've listened to your point about the date you got your qualification. You're an educator. You got your degree. You got your certificate. You got your
mm,
diploma, whatever it is. Um, we also mentioned, or I brought up the fact that I don't know when I became an educator, and I do think it's a journey. And I've one of the things I've been thinking about over this last week or so since this idea has come around is that again in that journey I don't even think you ever get there, but also a lot of us that have been in this sector for any amount of time, we graduate from educator to might be room leader and then nominated supervisor, center director,
mm,
some other non-operational title. But what I find really, really interesting and what I've seen over my many, many years of managing people is some of those um, really true educators never stop being educators.
mm,
I had a guy that I used to work with. Sadly, we no longer work together. But some days you'd have those really bad days in the office, putting out fires, blah blah blah, and then you'd kind you have those weeks when they're just not good. But then some light bulb moment of greatness will come because you suddenly have received a short clip or a photo
mhm,
from say a really great STEM program that you had previously spent
mm,
time working on, or is that you're doing some intergen day. I mean, it doesn't have to even be extreme, but just really great moments. And then suddenly you see those diehard educators who, yes, are now managers or non-operational,
mm.
whatever, but you see that light it gives them
Yeah,
and the joy it gives them. Even they didn't facilitate that. They just got a glimpse into someone else, some
yeah,
other child's day, educator's day. And
yeah,
just to watch that, and I saw it a lot of times with this particular co-worker that, often we'd have these bad days, but then you get a glimpse from on the floor and it made you remember your why
yeah,
of why are you
mhm,
suddenly wanting to manage, what can often
yeah,
feel like a dumpster fire. Because at the end of the day, you may not be an educator anymore, but you still, the people in this sector and a lot of us in management, I mean, we know there's always someone that doesn't have good intentions, but for a lot of us
mhm.
who are now maybe in management positions or moving into different roles that aren't on the floor, your why on why you do this is because you want the best for those children you care for. And maybe that is when you become an educator.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I wrote it down as so what I wrote down, and it could be a series of things. What we're looking at is, in this podcast, it seems that we are not going, in this podcast, we don't look at just traditionally what people think teachers are or teaching is, or the phenomenon of teaching is. What we look at is, hang on, distinctively looking, if we had to give a meaning, what meaning would we give to it? So here's a couple of meanings we are giving before I go into the second thing about educator is one who is willing to be educated, one who is aware of learning process. You are not the only carrier of the learning. There are lots of other ways a learner can learn, one from you and another. And now what I'm learning, what I'm hearing from you is an educator is someone who has his why still alive. Yeah. So that's that. But the same thing could be then in a series of podcasts could be when did you become a leader or room leader? Distinctively looking at what room leader means to you, not definition. When did you become a room leader? When did you become an area manager? When did you become a principal?
Because there was no one else, so I had to do it.
You just had to keep showing up like, hey, here's the key.
and I know that people that are listening to this are now nodding their head. Yeah.
I became a manager because I just kept showing up to work. And then, hey, one day, then nobody had the keys. So I became the manager of that place. So yeah, I understand that. And it's about moving away from these slogans, as we said in the previous podcast. We want to move away from, I'm a leader because I do these 4 things. No, I'm a leader because I've sat with this word and thought, am I a leader or am I called being a leader by others? Because there are some leaders who don't have qualification, they're yet leading, yes? There are leaders who have qualification and yet nobody wants to follow them. So when we give academic qualification as the sole qualifier, we are missing some amazing talent which exists and other dimensions to see the same word from. So today, if we were to just focus on the word educator, I'm learning to be an educator. Man, I'm not there yet. And I don't want to be known as an educator alone because I don't know everything to educate. More like a sharer than anything. When someone says, hey, can you teach me? I'm like, oh, I can help you, but I'm not sure if I can teach you because I don't know everything. So I'm moving away from the word educator and teacher because maybe from the childhood perspective, I didn't have many good teachers. And now as an adult, I think I don't know a lot. I know just a few things. And when people say, oh, you have an expertise in it, I'm like, no, I don't even know if I have an expertise on it. I'm not that. I just know a few things and I'm confident and clear about a few things. I can share those things with you, but hey, to be able to teach, you need to know a lot. I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know nothing. I don't know a lot. So if I go there as, hey, look, I'm just going to collaborate something. I'm going to share some of my ideas and then you tell me if this works out for you. And therefore, a new thing that I've done in my workshop is that although I bring my own slides, I have a whiteboard next to me and I say, okay, this whiteboard is blank. You and I are going to write some things on this whiteboard. That would be our collaborative learning because one can argue that I brought those slides from home. So I'm going to impose those slides on you, but don't let it impose on you. Don't agree with what I'm going to show you. Disagree with it. And agreements and disagreements would be written on the whiteboard. So I'm now I'm now allowing the space for the audience to have learning in their own way also, not just the slides. So I think, what makes an educator? Helen, I don't know.
Nice.
I don't know. And when did you become one?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. But at least you and I don't claim to be someone that we know that we are struggling with. I'd rather not say I am someone when I haven't created depth in it. So we can come back to this question, what makes an educator or when did you become an educator? And I really hope that people can let us know through text messages or through emails or verbally. And then we can come back and say, hey, now we know 5 things what makes an educator. There's so many things.
Can they share them with us? Because apparently we still don't know.
Yeah, like help us. We are here, sitting here, helpless podcasters that we don't know. And not knowing has always been a great possibility for me because when you don't know, you explore. When you know, you get comfortable with that knowledge. So I'm happy to keep learning. But yeah, Helen, any final points from your side on When did you become an educator?
No, I think I've already said it. I'm pretty sure that it's still a journey that I am on.
Yeah,
I know me.
perfect.
No. I need to go back and say I do think I'm an educator, and I love it. And it's why in my non-operational job, I'm always like, oh, you need someone to go out on the floor? I'll go.
I'll go.
um, so yeah, I do. Do I identify as an educator? Yes, I do. Do I
Perfect.
know when I felt this strong conviction that I'm an educator? No, I don't.
Perfect. And I think, Helen, anyone who knows you will call you an educator, and children would like to be educated by you. So that's
Mm.
that. I think that's a big qualifier. Would your children or would your audience say you're an educator? Or would they say, oh, you just got hired? You just had a blue card or working with children card, so you just became an educator. And now we have to listen to you. Um, would the children or your audience look at you and say, I'm willing to learn from you? I'm
That's the
willing to,
next podcast. We don't have time to jump
yeah,
into that
I think
one.
that's another qualifier. What would your audience call you as? Not what your qualification call you as, not what you call yourself, but what would your audience, children or adults, what would they look at you and call you as? If they
Remember,
don't,
we've got a whole podcast on swearing, so
yeah, perfect. Okay, that's what I think it was podcast number 3 or 4. But no, thank you very much for listening. If you know when did you become an educator and what is an educator, not sloganish. Oh, educator is this or educator. No, no, no. Not definition. Don't have to Google it. What is an educator for you? And if you don't know what is an educator for you, how about we write down what is not being an educator looks like? That will narrow it down. We are not educators because we got qualification from a university or institution. We are not educators because we have working with children card. We're educators because we said we are an educator. And when did that happen? So that's a good way to end this conversation, Helen. Thank you very much for spending some of your weekend with me.
Mhm.
And I always appreciate your input. So, looking forward to learning more about when did we become an educator or
Mhm.
what is an educator. Thank you very much, Helen. Goodbye, everyone. Look after yourself and the people you love from the team We Belong Education podcast. Thank you for listening.
See you later. We'll talk soon.
Bye bye.